Welcome back to In Progress, our weekend roundtable discussion of the stories, issues, and ideas that are important to progressive folks here in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier, podcasting director for Progress Texas. We're a statewide nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. This week, I'm joined by Advocacy and Development Coordinator Tatum Owens.
Hello, howdy. Good to see y'all.
Executive Director Kathleen Thompson.
Hey, y'all.
And our Digital Associate Haley Smith.
Howdy, howdy.
So for this week, we want to talk about progressivism as a topic, as a concept. When we say that we promote progressive messages and actions here at Progress Texas, you might wonder, what exactly does that mean? Is there a difference between being a progressive and a Democrat? Is there a difference between being a progressive and being a liberal? The term is pretty loose in its definition, but we think it's helpful occasionally to stop and kind of think about what exactly makes up the range of opinions and values and standards that define progressivism. And so that's what we've decided to do today. We have a list of different issue areas that you can find at our website at progresstexas.org that we use as a questionnaire of sorts in our Certified Progressive program, which serves as a way for folks who follow our work to easily see if candidates whom they might be thinking about voting for share their views on each of these matters. And so we're going to go through a few of these and kind of give you our ideas about what we think progressivism is, and we're kind of cherry picking from our list here. Tatum, why don't you go ahead and go first?
So what I'm going to start us off with talking about is voting rights and democracy. For many people, voting rights and democracy it's a cornerstone of progressive value systems and an entry point for a lot of people to get politically involved and civically engaged. So basically, it sucks living in Texas as a voter. Our government is not set up for you to be engaged, not set up for you to get to the polls, and in fact closes the door to many people. We rank, I think it's 46th was the last metric that I had in the nation for voting access. And yeah, that's not great. It's actually very close to the bottom. There's only 50. Right. Our election system needs to focus on expanding voting rather than restricting it, by increasing access through online or automatic voter registration and expanding vote by mail to all eligible voters. While courts have ruled that voter ID requirements may stand, it is imperative that Texas broaden voter ID requirements, for example, which have been under attack, to include as many types of ID as possible, such as student IDs. It would be really easy to get young people involved that way. In order to ensure equal voting power and a truly representative democracy, we must also eliminate the influence of corporate money. Thank you, Citizens United, in our campaign finance system, institute campaign finance limits at the state level, and end the partisan gerrymandering of electoral maps. Progress Texas has been a strong coalition partner in the fight for a Texas VRA, or Texas Voting Rights Act. There are fights all across the U.S. right now to institute state voting rights acts to match the national VRA, because all across the nation, voting rights are under attack at every level, especially closing doors to build a multiracial and multicultural democracy. So what are y'all's thoughts on how we can protect and build a core of progressive values around voting rights and democracy?
Well, I would just want to say that if I can get my fishing license online in Texas, I should be able to register to vote online in Texas like you can in, such progressive states. Just kidding, like Oklahoma. The system that we have in Texas is archaic and it's expensive, y'all. It's so expensive. Somebody has to get a piece of paper, get a pen, write down their information, put it in the mail. That mail goes to the county elections office. A county employee has to type in your chicken scratch and guess what it says. Guess. Is that a 9 or a 4?
Who knows?
We'll see. Put that into the system, and then that goes to the Texas Secretary of State. Instead of all that middleman business, how about just you, the voter, who knows what your birthday is or your social security and your driver's license, just puts it directly into the system. It's expensive and it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. And that's money that could be better spent in a myriad of ways.
I'm a college student, and there was an incident. It was my freshman year. It was my first major election. It was the midterms, and I thought I registered correctly. I have done voting rights work. I've done voting rights work previously. I still do voting rights work now. It's still difficult for me to register to vote and to understand the process. And so I had submitted my voting application and I thought everything was fine. And then the deadline, which is a month before the election to register, came and went. And then I get a mail from the mailing office at my dorm that says like, oh, you did your registration wrong. Sorry. Go to the website to figure it out. And I was like, oh, well, I can't now. Thank you. And so I ended up driving home to go vote. I can only vote in statewide elections. And it just sucks. Why are we boxing people out of this like critical process that allows them to participate in the things that influence their everyday lives?
And if we had online voter registration, I think we're one of 10 states at this point that don't do online voter registration. It is the modern era. It's Kathleen's point. It's archaic to not implement this.
I should DoorDash my vote.
Right.
Yeah. All of this is by design, of course. The catchphrase has been that Texas is not a red state. Texas is a non-voting state. And I think Beto O'Rourke is the guy that really kind of popularized that saying. But since then, I have kind of evolved my thinking to think of it in terms of Texas is not a red state. Texas is a voter suppressed state. And all the things that we're talking about from the lack of digital access, the lack of language access, which we really haven't talked about yet. We have a website that we have put together that involves a whole bunch of different languages that the Texas State Secretary of State does not bother with, languages that are heavily represented across Texas, especially in Houston, I would say, our most diverse and largest city in our entire state. The difficulty in voting is part of the plan and part of design of the folks who've been running Texas for the last several decades. Make no mistake about that. Let's keep on going here. From our list, Kathleen is going to talk to us about the concept of healthcare and how progressives think about that idea.
Healthcare is a right, and all Texans deserve access to affordable healthcare. The state of Texas should expand Medicaid, which will save lives and bring home billions of our own federal tax dollars. 9-1. And it is imperative that Congress protect the Affordable Care Act. And for those of you who have only known the Affordable Care Act, let me tell you about the before times. The before times meant that you could not be on your parents' insurance as long. It also meant that healthcare insurers could deny coverage or charge more due to pre-existing conditions. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that pregnancy is a pre-existing condition. We are all here on this earth because someone was pregnant.
That's right.
That's half of the population who could become pregnant or have a pregnancy. So I remember the film from documentarian Michael Moore, Sicko, about before the ACA, when people were choosing in a catastrophic accident, sorry to be gross, but like which finger to save after an accident, because what could they afford? Or in the before times, before spending caps, what kind of care can you get for your medically fragile child? And then you just can't pay anymore because you've already sold your home. I hear talk that there could be a scrapping of the ACA in the congressional session to come. It's been 15 years since the Affordable Care Act has been passed and signed into law. So there's been that much time to come up with an alternative, and I haven't heard it yet.
The concepts of a plan. I don't know if you've... And I am a young person. I honestly didn't know that being on your parents' healthcare, like the extended age, was a part of the Affordable Care Act. I'm 21 years old right now. If you asked me to pay for my own healthcare, I'd probably be homeless. And that's it's a little silly, but like, seriously, I can't pay for that. And so my options are, do I get healthcare that I need to survive, or do I have the money that I need to survive? And in a country like ours, we should not be making that decision. This is a policy decision. This is a policy choice that we are purposely making to exclude people from healthcare. And it doesn't have to be this way.
Right. I'll throw in that we are the only advanced developed nation on the face of the planet that has this type of healthcare system. Every other nation in the world has been smart enough to realize that taking care of at least people's preventative care, at least trying to keep people healthy before they get horribly sick and need very expensive emergency care, is a good idea, is a good budget idea, is a good societal idea. And to drag it back to Texas, something that, again, if you're just beginning to kind of explore your political inclinations, and that may be why you're listening to this, You'll hear progressive folks in Texas talk about the fact that our state has not expanded Medicaid. And what that means is, dating way, way back, our state has had the option to opt in to more money and more services from Medicaid to help take care of more of our people of lower income, single mothers, mothers of small kids, a broad variety of people who could really use this help. The kicker is, there's two kickers really. This is our money. This is money that we've already paid into the federal tax system. This is money that is ours. That the IRS happens to be sitting on. They're offering it back to us. We've said we don't want it. The second thing on that is we don't know why. There is no really good reason that the Republican Party has been able to supply for their continued, very, very much dug in. They won't even talk about it. They won't even allow it to come to any kind of real discussion on the floor. It really, to me, honestly, I think the fact that its nickname is Obamacare, I think that's plenty right there is why Texas continues to say no.
And we've only seen sickness and loss as a result of this hesitation, right? Like, what is it? 20 rural hospitals have closed. And I think just overall, you take a look at our healthcare system in Texas, with Texas having the highest rate of uninsured people in America. Like, by the states, we're the worst. Here we are yet again, just actually at the bottom in this case, though, where people get priced out of making sure that their grandma can get chemo treatments or whatever it may be, that you can take care of yourself and that you have that right to health care. The majority of Americans get their insurance through their employer. So what happens if you're disabled, for one thing? You lose a lot of income with that, and Medicaid has a lot of requirements and bureaucracy that it puts you through if you want to access just the most meager amount of health care, not to mention pre-existing conditions, of course. So if you're elderly, if you're a child, or if you're disabled, or any other degree, it gets a lot more complicated for you right then and there, not to mention it already being so expensive to access healthcare if you have insurance. Costs are rising.
Right.
That's right.
Medicaid provides close to, I think it's 41% of insurance for children across the U.S. Children are the highest group that access that care. And so what happens with an imperfect piece of legislation if that goes away? We can, you would hope that we could only build and expand and protect against the very human condition of getting sick. But instead, people are being priced out of being able to take care of their families and themselves.
Moving on down the list here, and this is a topic that Texas has been very, very central to on a national scale over the last several years, and that's reproductive rights. Haley's going to start us off here talking about that.
On this list of progressive values, there's a lot of things that I think personally impact me. I'm a young person. I'm a college student. I'm gay. I'm a woman. You know, there are a lot of things here that personally impact my daily life, but I think there's nothing that really keeps me up like abortion rights and reproductive rights. Just the fact that I, as a woman, do not have autonomy over my body and my medical decisions is terrifying. Abortion has become a very politicized issue, and I don't think it should be. It is healthcare, and there are people that are dying because they're not getting access to life-saving treatment. I'd recommend anybody who's listening to watch Zawoski v. Texas. It's a documentary about Texas women fighting the abortion laws here, and I think about it, I'm not kidding, every single day. These are policy decisions that impact the most vulnerable members of our community. And like you were talking about with healthcare, even children are impacted by this. These are the type of things that our elected officials have a responsibility to think about. And it's terrifying that we aren't allowing this, they are allowing this to just happen. I'm really glad for the work that we do here, boosting those issues and fighting for progressive values across the board.
Thank you, Haley, for that. You know, I'm a woman. I could get pregnant at any point in time. I have means at my disposal to protect against that, although those have been attacked time and time again, and we'll see what happens. I'll share that I have an implant to protect against that because God forbid, like for me, it's a God forbid situation. I don't have the financial means to take care of a kid. My sister had the audacity the other day to say, I hope you have a kid so I can find out if I want one. I'm like, you should not be wishing this on anyone.
No.
In this political climate, Maddie, you're
Girl,
insane.
knock on wood.
I did. Our abortion rights are at stake. This is intimately intertwined with our fight for affordable health care. And you see that in legislation like EMTALA, which protects your right to receive health care when you go to an ER and you get that treatment because that's been put into legislation. Once again, these are all policy choices. EMTALA was being attacked. This is broad healthcare legislation because abortion access is intertwined with it. And so, in a state that has one of the highest maternal mortality rates, and in a state where our government refuses to update reports on that because it's pretty clear that it's probably suffered as a result of stripped abortion rights. We don't have the rights we once did, and people are dying because of it. It's as simple as that. It's horrible, and it is a matter of life and death, and it's a hard thing to sit with because it's so backwards, right? Like, this is not something we should be having to deal with in the modern day. This is healthcare for a large majority of the population. Everybody has to, or so, like Kathleen said, so many people have to deal with reproductive health care, and so many different components of that are under attack because abortion has been stigmatized time and time again, and now legislation has been put forward to attack it at any means.
As a Texas progressive, I believe that all Texans, regardless of age, race, income, zip code, etc., should have access to the full range of reproductive health care, and that includes abortion access, birth control, and comprehensive age-appropriate sex education. And I don't need veterinarians and lawyers and pest control company owners making decisions about my body at the legislature. I think it was Senator Kamala Harris, who asked Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh to name the laws, the federal and state laws that cover men's health care. And he couldn't come up with one. And it should be the same for women.
Well, as the only male sitting here talking about this topic, I will highlight the fact that the laws that we're all under generally and predominantly are voted on by white men. And I think you see a callousness that emerges into policymaking in a lot of different areas where these guys don't think they're going to be affected. They don't think that the climate is warming up, so they don't vote to preserve the environment. They themselves can totally afford their doctor bills. And so they don't think about the fact that we have millions of Texans who have a hard time with that. And I think abortion rights and reproductive rights fall along that same line. This is something that's easy for men, A, who are not going to get pregnant themselves, and B, frankly, if it happens to a young woman in their family, they can probably figure out a way to take care of the situation. There's a certain degree of classism going on here. There's a certain degree of it's not only against women, it's against people who cannot afford and would not be able to even take advantage of the opportunities that they have economically if an unexpected child was suddenly introduced into the situation. And so there are many, many different layers of this. I'll say one more thing about it too that I've learned really recently, and that it is completely possible to be personally pro-life and still support the reproductive freedom of other people. And I think that's something that folks in the opposition of the progressive wing in Texas tend to forget, is that your policy should be about what affects our entire state, not about what your religion tells you. When you're governing an entire state, especially one as big as Texas, you should be looking at the entire picture. And I think a lot of these people just simply fail to do that just out of their own individual hubris, really. So let's continue in this one. This last topic we're going to have time to cover, and there's a whole bunch more of them, again, at our website, progresstexas.org. Look for our certified progressive page. There you'll see the entire list of these different issue areas. We have discovered, of course, that this one has been super important, not only just for every single Texan on a day-to-day basis, but lately electorally, largely the reason that we believe we have one Donald J. Trump as our current president of the United States is that he managed to grab the lapels of more Americans about the economy than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris were able to. And that's largely why a great many people who today are perhaps second guessing that vote, that's the number one reason that everybody that voted for Trump out of some degree of indecision pretty much used to tip the scales for them. And a great many of them, again, are having buyer's remorse at this point. So from the list, under what we see as economic opportunity and workers' rights, our economy is powered by hardworking Texans. All Texas workers deserve a living wage and should have access to paid sick days, family leave, and safe work environments. It's beyond time that we increase the minimum wage, holy cow, which is still at this recording, $7.25 an hour, if you can believe that, and ensure equal pay for equal work. All workers must have the right to organize and fight for their economic security, including public pensions and retirement security. The economy underlies everything in this state. This is a lesson that I think the Democratic Party has been having to learn the hard way over the last little while.
We all spend money. We all sit at the behest of corporations that have gained monopolies because there's a lack of antitrust legislation and policies from the top down. And so as consumers, we are under attack more than ever. Our privacy rights are gone out the window, and that has impacted us across the board. Citizens United was kind of the start of where we've gotten to at this political moment in America, which is, of course, a Supreme Court decision that decided that corporations in, cases could be designated as people. They would be recognized as that. Also unions, that's thrown in there. But when you start to give some of the most rich people in America even more power than they already had, it's an exponential process of greed that goes on. And so people can't afford basic necessities. I think we all agree that Trump won because he campaigned on grocery prices, and yet here we are. Prices are expensive. Tariffs do that, apparently. Who knew? It is an expensive time to be a Texan, especially not just an American. We depend on a property tax system, and that's kind of the only way that our government is paid for by the citizens of Texas. And this is a sad fact because people are paying out of the nose for their property taxes, one. And because of a lack of government funding for our public services, we pay because of that. Like when you go to the hospital and your hospitals are underfunded because Texas decides it doesn't want to do that. And federally, we don't want to make sure that people can get affordable healthcare access. We all pay because of it. And so when you have an open government that provides direct services to the people that have asked this of their government, it actually turns out to be less expensive. And so I guess what I got to say is it all comes together. And class is one of the most uniting things that we can look at. And that's why you see people that are putting forward economic populist rhetoric deliver on other issues, whether it's grocery prices or healthcare access or whatever it may be. But the thing is that housing affordability is a major thing, the basic needs that people need to cover.
Yeah, I'll say that young people are motivated and turned on by public policy that speaks to them. If you're working a minimum wage job, how do you provide for yourself to have an apartment, to pay for the groceries, to pay the electric bill? Democrats should not be afraid of public policy that works for working people.
While these mega corporations have so much power and control over us, and more now than I think ever before, we, on the other hand, as workers, also hold so much power. And I think this might be easy for me to say because I am lucky enough to work at Progress, Texas. But as a worker, you really do hold so much power. They can't exist without you. And at the time of this recording, I've seen, a general strike maybe being something that, activists and advocates are talking about. Because, I think people really do need to recognize their value as a worker and what they contribute to society. And it's not just Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk who are doing cool things. They can only exist because of the work that you do. So when you go to work in the morning, just remember that.
I'll wrap this up with a real quick concept for the listener to take away. The idea that if you have a giant, multi-zillion dollar corporation, that part of their business model is paying people low enough wages to where those people have to rely on either, state or county or federal food assistance or any other type of assistance. Those businesses are getting an indirect subsidy based on your tax dollars. We are paying for those businesses to be able to pay people these terrible wages. And so think about it. That's a very real analogy. So down the list of other topics that we didn't get to cover in great detail include an environmentally sustainable Texas. Texas should be at the front of the clean energy economy, leading the energy transition by increasing production of renewable energy investing in sustainable solutions, and reducing the use of fossil fuels. Every Texan has the right to live in a healthy community with clean water and air, safe from the high and long-term costs of fossil fuel operations and liquefied natural gas infrastructure on our health, local economies, and of course, our climate. Quality public education and affordable college. A strong public education system should offer every student the guarantee to high-quality pre-K through 12th grade public schooling. Every Texan should have access to a safe, inclusive learning environment, free from book bans and school voucher scams that steal taxpayer money for private schools, which tend to discriminate against marginalized and low-income communities. We need an adequate, equitable, and sustainable source of funding to ensure competitive pay and livable income for retirement for teachers that keeps up with rising inflation costs. Also, LGBTQIA plus equality. We need protections for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and intersex Texans in all forms. Our elected leaders at the federal, state, and local level should work to provide equal rights and protection under the law for all LGBTQ plus people, like housing, employee, and medical protections, not push laws that chip away at equality under the false guise of religious liberty and endanger already vulnerable populations. Rights for immigrants. We must create an immigration system that protects immigrants in vulnerable communities. Immigrant families and workers living and working in Texas must be treated with the same respect and dignity as everyone else. We must end the practice of family separation and begin repairing institutional damage by repealing discriminatory policies and divesting funds from militarizing the border via border wall or any other form of militarization. Criminal and racial justice. All Texans deserve to be protected and treated equitably by a fair criminal justice system. We must institute comprehensive reforms to ensure accountability and justice in cases of police violence, to combat racial disparities throughout the system, and to end the mass incarceration of communities of color. Ending gun violence. Inexcusable, senseless violence has been brought upon innocent victims and their families in Texas. Policies that address the devastating epidemic of gun violence and protect responsible gun ownership are not mutually exclusive. We must stand up to the dangerous influence of the gun lobby and implement life-saving, evidence-based reforms, including universal background checks, passing red flag laws, repeal of open and campus carry, stop straw purchases, and stop the sale of assault weapons. Great talk, y'all. We appreciate it very, very much. Progress Texas is a statewide nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. We host a robust and growing podcasting network that now ranks in the top 2.5% globally for listenership, and we're publishing our In Progress Weekend Roundtable that you've just heard also on KPFT Radio in Houston. Welcome if you're listening on the radio. You'll find that on our podcast feed every Friday. Also on the podcast feed, the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, a short summary and analysis of the day's most important stories every weekday morning, and the Progress Texas Happy Hour, which are long-form interviews and discussions with office holders, candidates, activists, advocates, and thought leaders from across Texas and beyond. We also do frequent live events, so check our website to find out one near you, and we'll see you there. Learn more about our work at progresstexas.org and find us on all of the major social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Unified. We are also looking forward to seeing you, dear listener, at one or maybe both of our two holiday parties coming up in December. The first on Monday, December 8th in Austin. The second, the following Monday, December 15th in Dallas. Both of these events for the first time featuring live podcast recordings with a bunch of our favorite and most influential movers and shakers. Sponsorships are available. So far, our 2025 annual holiday parties are brought to you by Shaping the Future supporter Charles Zeller, Fired Up supporter John Adair, Be the Change supporters Scott Elphinstone and Howard Cleon, Persistent supporters the Honorable Dick Levine, the Honorable Yasmin Simon, Jason Smith and Sarah Pareda, Unified and Jerry Yoss, Good Trouble supporters Allison Grinter Allen, Bright Blue Inc., Alex Clark and Kate Rumsey, hosts of the Mission Texas podcast, Valerie DeBille, the Honorable Vicki Goodwin, Joe Jaworski, the Honorable Ron Nierenberg and Mark Yagdjian, and Raise More Health supporters Louis A. Bedford IV, Stuart Campbell, Hannah Cutshaw, Bill Holston, the Honorable Donna Howard, Angela and Gary Kutak, Jenny Laughlin, Carol Orr, Jennifer Owen, Mark Ferris, the Honorable Zoe Kadri, Beth Stromberg, and the Texas Progressive Caucus. Learn more about our upcoming holiday parties again December 8th in Austin and December 15th in Dallas at progresstexas.org. Have a great weekend.